What's up, creative? Steve Jones Jr. here, back with another episode of This Is the Moment. This episode, I have a very special guest, an amazing person. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mallory McHenry. What's up?
Oh my goodness. Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me here on your podcast. I'm really excited to talk it out.
The month of March is Women's History Month. Yesterday was Women's Day. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel really empowered. In today's day and age, just being a woman and being proud to be a woman, a Black woman at that, means so much to me. And to see it being celebrated, especially this month, it's been really nice.
Absolutely. It's been 2 years. I believe they said last week, and last week was the last normal week that we had, and nobody knew it.
I know.
Two
Yeah,
years
that's
ago.
true. Yeah.
What were you doing before the pandemic hit, like that week?
Oh my goodness. I was sitting at my school. I was still a graduate student, trying to finish up my doctoral studies. And I remember the day that our school announced that it was shutting down. It was around spring break time, and they were telling us not to go anywhere international because we wouldn't be able to return to school. But we didn't think anything of it until the day we had a rehearsal that day, and our director, our professor, was telling us, you guys have to pack up and go to school. This is our last. I mean, go home. This is our last. This is our last rehearsal, so make the best of it, especially the graduating students. And we were like, okay, and we didn't know what was going to happen after that. We all went home, and it turned out to be this. So 2 years in the making.
Within these 2 years, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned for yourself?
Oh man. Over the past 2 years, I've learned how much I've actually, this is right in tune with this podcast. I've actually learned how much I've been stifling my own creativity. And
Wow.
so I've been spending a lot of time trying to kind of think outside of the box. I tend to kind of stay in my lane and be creative that way. But there's so much to explore and so many opportunities to create for your own self. And so I've really been learning how to step outside of my normal box.
We got to get into the story of how you started playing the harp. Where did this start?
Oh my goodness. I was actually a pianist first, and I
Okay.
started playing piano when I was about 6, I think. And then I started playing harp when I was 13. But I saw somebody play at church. I grew up in the church and I was there. And one day I saw somebody playing. I was like, I've got to do that. At least give it a try. And my parents sat me down and they were like, because it's an expensive profession, starting with the instrument.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so they were like, if you're going to do this, you're gonna have to stick it out. And I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, okay, whatever. But I started, and I've been going ever since then. So it's been a journey, but when I'm happy I decided to go on. So
One thing we creatives, we musicians need is patience. If you don't have patience, oh my gosh, you're in for a rude awakening.
absolutely.
What advice do you have for people, our generation, when it comes to being patient?
When it comes to being patient, there are so many things that we have to be patient with. And I think that um, patience doesn't have one lane. Like there's different ways you can be patient with different things. Um, my number one thing when it comes to that is really just being kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the first way that I sit down to be patient with myself. I know that when I'm in the practice room, I can get really upset with myself.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you think about it as a creative, you're doing kind of the impossible. You're creating something out of nothing. And who doesn't have time for that? Who doesn't have time to be patient through that process? And you have to remind yourself that those are the times when things become beautiful. And that's where the patience needs to kick in the most.
I'm glad you said that. Something I've been working on myself in the pandemic is giving myself grace. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can compliment yourself, you can smile, like you said, in the practice room. It's blood, sweat, and tears,
And
but
fears.
more so
Mm-hmm.
tears than anything.
Yep.
And I'm starting to learn, like, okay, if you keep pulling yourself down and like beating yourself up, when it's time to perform, you're going to be out of it because
Yeah.
mentally you have put all these walls up in front of yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, what advice do you have for people when it's like, lighten up? Like, what advice do you have for that?
This is something that I've been doing recently. Get up and get away. Like, step away from what you are doing and find something that you wouldn't normally do and go do that. That not only takes your mind off of, what you're doing and gives you kind of a more lighthearted spirit to, the process that you're going through, but it also can ignite a different kind of creativity. It might be worthwhile to step away and, find something else that you can be creative in and bring that back to your art form later.
As a doctor now, how was that journey getting your doctorate in the midst of uncertainty during the pandemic?
Oh man, it was a lot. I have to tell you, it was a lot. And I'm really grateful that I stuck it out. Just like you said earlier, I'm very hard on myself. Subtract the outside factors. I had a very specific dissertation topic, which, shout out to women since it's Women's History Month. I focused on the music of Florence Price, Undine Smith Moore, and Betty Jackson King, all three Black women. And I took their music and I was able to take it from its original form, transcribe it for harp so it's accessible to the harp community, so that way those African-American composers get more exposure. And it was hard. I started writing my dissertation when George Floyd was murdered. And the impact that had on how I was conducting my research literally knocked me out. It knocked me out so bad. I felt like I was speaking on behalf of those women, and I just emotionally couldn't put words to paper for a very long time. And I will say I had the support of a lot of people. And it was really nice to be able to come together that way. But having that emotionally impact my progress, plus being in a pandemic away from all of my resources, I wasn't at school, I wasn't in my libraries. It was rough, but we made it.
Absolutely.
We made it.
My mom and we get into battles about our generation. She says we're the microwave generation, whatever we want, it's instant, boom. Food, yes. If we want to check Instagram, like we don't have to wait till 6 p.m. and watch the news. You can be like, oh, I found that out when, they posted it. Do you think that us having access to everything so fast is hurting us in a sense, or is it, how do you feel about that?
In some ways I do think it hurts, but in some ways it's definitely beneficial. Like for instance, having digital access to scores or digital access to books and things now, that's wonderful. But in the way that it hurts us is that we aren't, going back to us talking about being patient, we aren't being patient with ourselves. We aren't allowing ourselves to really open our hearts and our minds to things that are supposed to make us feel present, like supposed to make us feel in the moment. And I think that's a way that, this let's have it right now mindset kind of hurts us in a way. And I think that's where a lot of this talk about having patience with yourself and having patience with the day ins and day outs, it's a good conversation to have. But it does benefit us in many ways. Now we need news. We need news every minute on the minute, every hour on the hour. But sometimes it's nice to not be in the know,
I want to talk about your undergrad experience just for a moment. One thing I've been seeing a lot of times in the undergrad experience is that a lot of talented people, or some of the most talented people, they come in and then everybody's like, they get this intimidated thing like, oh, this person can do this person can do this person. And it's like, What about you? How important is it, especially in undergrad, to focus on what you have?
I'm going to say this and I'm going to mean it. Talent is overrated. Talent is
Ooh.
overrated. The only thing that gets you from point A to point B is hard work and dedication.
Mm.
I did not consider myself talented. I consider myself a hard worker. And I have a very strong work ethic, which is good and bad at times. I will say that. But I had to work my way through undergrad. I really, really did, just to keep on top of everything. But I will say that you have to give yourself grace within your art form and within your craft. I think that it's weird that we kind of go to college so early, because we're not supposed to really know what we're supposed to do with our lives at that point. It's hard to kind of narrow it down. It was hard for me to narrow it down, and really determine what I wanted to do. There's so many aspects of music that you can choose from, not only what you bring to the table as a musician. Yes, I'm a harpist, but I do a lot. I can transcribe music. I can work in administrative offices and in positions. I love art administration. There's so many things that can really expand your mind when you get into those moments. And so I really think that if you're practicing and honing your talent with hard work and dedication, those answers and things, they'll come, but you have to be patient with yourself. We're going to always go back to patience.
I'm back to it.
Yeah, you have to be patient with yourself. It's just like your instrument, even if you're a vocalist or you're an instrumentalist, just how your technique and your musical voice and all those things, they change over time. So does your mindset within what you decide to do with your art craft. And I think that college is just the beginning. It's just the beginning, and it's putting one foot in front of the other and climbing that ladder until you figure it out.
How do you balance everything?
That is an excellent question, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I used to be a person that would never, ever say no. And I have learned that there is a way to do that in order to, protect myself and my well-being and my mental health, and still do what I really want to do, what I've been aspiring to do for years. I do struggle with balance. I have to admit, and I think a lot of us do, because we have that fear of missing out mindset. I think a lot of us do. And I don't know. I do keep myself on a pretty tight schedule. And I give a lot of my time and a lot of my energy to my students and to my job. But I always take time to be creative in a space where I know I'm comfortable and I'm secure and I'm taken care of. So I always make sure that that's a part of, my day in and my day out.
You brought up that you're a hard worker, and your work ethic is like, I've seen it. So she's not lying. I was reading a quote this week. It says, the dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately.
Mm-hmm.
How you
Absolutely.
feel?
I love that. You can dream all you want. If you're not going to get up from dreaming and make it happen, I don't know what to tell you. And I do know that is very hard. I tell my students this in the morning sometimes. They'll walk into class and they're a little tardy or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry for being late. And I tell them, don't even worry about it. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you showed up. And I'm glad you chose to come and learn today. And I think the same can be applied when we're talking about our dreams and our aspirations. The only person we're showing up for in these moments is ourselves. The only person that we're waking up to be better than in the morning is ourselves. How do you want to show up for you? How do you want to make your dreams and your aspirations come true? Are you just going to dream about them at night, or do you want to live them, every day? It's a choice.
Mhm. Who or what inspires Dr. Mallory McHenry today?
Oh, who or what inspires me? Outside of my family, which
Mhm.
they inspire me every day. Outside of my family, it's my students. I know that sounds a little weird, but it's my students. I learned so much from my students, even though, you know, it's supposed to be my job, and I'm supposed to be the one teaching them. They teach me every day, and it's not even from a pedagogical sense. It's how life works. It's how to love on people. It's how to show appreciation. And I just learn so much from them every day. I'm grateful to be able to be an educator. I was telling actually my mom, because she is one of my biggest inspirations. I was telling my mom the other day, if I wasn't able to teach, I don't know what I would do.
Wow. Yeah.
And I told her, I said, I believe that I'm a harpist, but I believe first and foremost, I'm an educator. I'm an educator that happens to play the harp. And so I think my biggest inspiration is the connection that I have with my students.
That's awesome. It's amazing like how you study, 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 study. Then when it's your turn to teach, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. As we are transitioning into this new, I really think this is like a new Renaissance era. If you peep in history, Mallory, like even if you go all the way back to the actual Renaissance, it's a time period where people go through, struggle, 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 and then they birth this art. And then it's the art that's the timeless art that stays throughout history. If you look at the Harlem Renaissance, like the Langston Hugheses,
Mhm.
like Zora Hurston's, Duke Ellens, and all the stuff these people were writing, like they're going through. And here we are, 2022, 2 years of just like nothing. Like, well, yeah, just stop. Everybody. It didn't matter how many Grammys you
Right.
had, how many
Yeah.
countries you traveled, like
Yep.
go home. And to
Mhm.
see that we're entering to this new age, where do you think the future of just beyond music, just our culture, like where are we going?
I think we're about to change the world. I think that so many people have had their creativity pent up for two
Wow.
years, if
Wow.
not more. Like, imagine all the people who are just now finding their voice because they were able to be still with themselves in this moment, in these past 2 years. Imagine all the content that's about to come out. Imagine all the spaces that are about to be just filled with these sounds that we didn't even think were possible. I think that things are just going to start propelling themselves forward. And I think there's going to be this type of momentum that's not going to stop. Especially when you're talking about diversifying spaces. I think that we got a lot of good movement going in terms of diversifying the performing arts or the arts in general. At the beginning of the pandemic. And I hope and I pray that momentum keeps going. And if I were to even talk to anybody about being in these types of spaces, I would want to tell them that no matter what happens, regardless of what happens, the outcome doesn't limit your creativity. The outcome should not limit your creativity. The outcome of whatever space that you're in, regardless of if they accept what your voice is saying or not, it does not affect the artist that you are. It does not affect the art that you are creating. And because I know I can speak from personal experience. I've been in spaces where my research has been told it doesn't matter. I've been in spaces where the music that I play has been told it shouldn't be played. And I have to work very hard to not let that affect my mindset and my creativity and who I am as an artist. And I think that this generation that's coming up, they have this attitude that they're not going to let any of that affect who they are as people. Yes, protect your mental health. Yes, protect you and take care of you first and foremost, but always moving forward. I think it's that forward motion that's going to change and really shake things up now. And I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what people are going to come up with and actually just put out into the world once we're all like free from being in this pandemic.
Being a Black woman, being a harpist, being in the field that you're in, how important is it to believe in what you are doing?
It's super important. And I don't want to say that you should believe in what you're doing. I want to say that you should believe in yourself and who you are, and how that's going to, shape you and mold you. Those are some of the only things that can help you transition into these spaces. Only 3% of classical musicians in our orchestras in the US are Black. 3%. Only 3%. In my specific profession, only one Black African-American harpist has held a principal position in a US major orchestra. And those are things that, we aspire to be. We aspire to be the change that we want to see in the world. But first and foremost, knowing ourselves and how we want to change those spaces is the most important thing. So,
as a harpist, how do you feel about hip hop music today?
Oh, I love it, and I wish we could. We could do it every day. There's been a huge awareness to what my instrument is, what the harp is, and you'll start seeing things pop up from time to time. There was harp on Kanye's last album. Janae Aiko has a harpist that she features all the time. I think that it's a new day and things are going to start shaking up in that aspect. I want to be a part so bad. It's possible. A lot of people will look at it, the harp as an instrument, and be like, oh, I don't think hip hop's going to go there, but it can happen, and it has. So I'm excited to see how that takes shape.
Musically, who are you listening to right now? Like this week, who have you been listening to?
This week, I don't know why I've been on a Gold Link trip. I've also been, I'm preparing for a gig, so I've been listening to Gustav Holst, who is also, he's a classical artist, a composer. Who else have I been listening to? I listened to Janae this week. I listened to a little bit of, oh my goodness, Mac. He's my favorite, R.I.P. And I'm trying to think. Oh, Emily King. I've been on a weird Emily King trip too. It's been a weird week.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As we're closing this out, without spoiling anything, what's next for Mallory?
I got you. I can tell you guys all the business. I'm actually as sad as I am to leave my current position, I've been offered a new position at the University of Texas at Austin. So I'll be transitioning from Dallas-Fort Worth to Austin, Texas over the summer and been getting a new job there. I'm sad to leave my students, but new things are coming. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get back in the city of Austin and collaborate with some of my favorite musicians. So that'll be exciting. As in terms of what's coming up with performance wise, just a couple of shows. I've got something coming up with the Dallas Winds, which is a huge wind band. I don't know if are you familiar with band music and that culture. And then I have an appearance with the Midland Odessa Symphony coming up in May. So all exciting things, but things are starting to change. So
if you could tell Mallory 5 years ago, give her any advice, what would you tell her?
Ooh. That it's going to be okay. I would tell myself that it's going to be okay. I'm somebody who really tries to look into the future before it happens, and
wow.
Good and full well that's not a thing.
Right.
I just have a fear of what can take place, and a lot of especially in the past 2 years, things have looked a little different. And so I would look back and tell myself, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay.
Looking forward 5 years from now, if you could tell Mallory something, what would you tell Mallory 5 years from now?
Oh, 5 years from now? What would I what?
What would you ask? What would you say?
I know I would tell her to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep just truly 100% being being myself. I want to tell her that she's valued and she's loved, even, if you're separating the professional from, who you are as a person, and everything is still going to be okay. Everything is still going to be all right.
Final question of the evening. It's an open-ended question, so don't think about it too long. If you could define music, what would your definition of music be? The gospel according to Mallory McHenry.
Oh my goodness. I would say, I can't believe I've never been asked this question before. I would say music is my heartbeat. Music is what keeps me breathing. Music is who I am and the heartbeat of everything that is to come. And it flows through me. That's what music is to me.
Mallory, I want to thank you again for your time. Y'all, thank y'all for tuning in. And this week, go for it. Look ahead. Look ahead. Look straight ahead. Go for it. Give it your best. Y'all, be safe. Keep wearing your mask, please. Thank you. And enjoy yourself. Peace out.